Hello, ninth graders. Today we're going to be starting on a new standard. First, on page 22 in your notes, I need you to write the standard that you see on the screen. Standard is describe the unique properties of water and explain the impact of water on life processes. During this presentation, I'll be going pretty quickly, so be sure to pause the screen at any time to make sure you get all your notes written down properly. Underneath the standard, give your page 22 a title, and make sure you also put the day's date. The title is The Extraordinary Properties of Water. Now on this screen, I don't need you to write everything. I only want you to write the title of your first section. We're only going to have 4. The title of your first section is Water is Polar, and then I need you to underline that. And then let's look at the screen here. Don't write anything. Everyone should be familiar with water. Water is made up of 3 atoms. One is an oxygen atom represented in red, and the other is hydrogen atoms represented in white, and there are 2 hydrogen atoms. And you should also remember that water is formed by a covalent bond. Alright, we're going to write the first 4 bullets on this screen. First, under water is polar, you need to write, in each water molecule, the oxygen atom attracts more than its fair share of electrons. It's kind of like saying oxygen is being a little selfish by taking all of the electrons. And that will make the second bullet, the oxygen N, act a little bit more negative. Your third bullet, with oxygen N being more negative, what's going to happen with the hydrogen N? With the hydrogen N not having enough electrons, the hydrogen N is going to have a little bit more protons, and that's going to make it act more positive. And the last bullet that I need you to write on this screen, and when oxygen N, one end is negative, one end is positive, this is what causes the water molecule to be polar. Okay, that's in that screen. Don't write the last bullet. Alright, I need you to write everything on this screen. First, underneath water is polar, write hydrogen bonds exist between water molecules. What are hydrogen bonds? We've learned covalent bond, we've learned ionic bond. Hydrogen bonds are a little bit different. I need you to write hydrogen bond again in the second bullet that you see here. So it should read hydrogen bond and then a little dash. They are formed between a highly electronegative atom of a polar molecule and a hydrogen. If you'll look at the polar molecule on the screen, which is water, notice that that one end, which is more positive, which is hydrogen, is being attracted to the other end, which is more negative because it's holding its more than its fair share of electrons, and that is creating the hydrogen bond. One hydrogen bond is very weak, but when you have several of them, they are very strong, which occurs in water. Alright, the last thing under water is polar. We're going to write this screen or this sentence. Negative oxygen end of the one water molecule is going to be attracted to the positive hydrogen end. And I need you to underline those 2 yellow words. You got negative oxygen is going to be attracted to the positive hydrogen, and this is what's going to be forming a hydrogen bond. And this screen, I need you to draw it. I prefer you to give each molecule its own color. Choose one color for the hydrogens, represented in white, and put a plus sign representing that they're positive. And then the other color, which is the oxygen, is going to be red. It's represented in red on this screen. And I need you to label this as negative. And notice that the red and the white are being attracted to one another because they have opposite charges. Opposite charges attract, and that creates the hydrogen bond. And that's going to end the water is polar section. Draw a line all the way across your paper. Alright, the next section is properties of water. And don't write everything on the screen. Underneath that section, properties of water, put a number 1. Your first property of water will be cohesion. Alright, we're going to write everything about cohesion from this screen. Cohesion is the attraction between particles of the same substance. Underline the word same in the meaning. And why is water attracted to itself again? Let's go back to this screen. Remember, water is attracted to itself because it's polar. One end is slightly negative, one end is slightly positive, and that makes water attract to itself, and that creates this property called cohesion. Alright, after you've written what the meaning of cohesion is, I need you to tell me the results. It results in surface tension That means water is kind of strong as it attracts to itself, and this is going to produce a surface film on water that allows the insects to walk on water or walk on the surface of water. And here is a couple of examples in just a minute. Make sure you write everything on this screen. Alright, notice that the water created like a film, and insects are able to hunt or try to find a mate or whatever they need to do in order to survive in their habitat, and this gives them the ability to walk on water because of the cohesion property. Okay, that ends that property. Next, I need you to put a number 2. The second property of water is adhesion, and we're going to write everything on this screen. Adhesion is the attraction between two different substances. It's not water being attracted to itself anymore. Water will make hydrogen bonds with other substances like glass, soil, plant tissues like roots or stems, and other plants like cotton. And I need you to write the third bullet, capillary action, underline that. That's when water molecules will be towed or will tow each other along when they're in a thin tube. It could be a glass tube or it could be plant tissue. And an example of adhesion is one I hope we'll go outside to see in action. It'll take 24 hours before we could actually see the results. I need you to write the example, which is called transpiration. And that's the process in which plants and trees remove water from the soil. And another example of transpiration is in your home when you're using paper towels to soak up water. There are two different substances, and water is being towed through the paper towel paper, and that helps soak up the water. You don't have to write that. You can stop at soil. Okay, and that ends number 2, or the second property of water. Look at your examples on the screen. That's capillary action. It's showing water being towed up inside the straw. Water is one substance. The straw is a different substance, but water is being pulled along inside the straw. Okay, now we're on number 3. Alright, number 3 is high specific heat. That's the third property of water, which simply means water resists temperature change both from heating and cooling. I need you to write this second bullet also for number 3. Water can absorb or release large amounts of heat energy with little change in the actual temperature. Okay, and I also need you to fit this under number 3. Water vapor forms a kind of global blanket when it holds this heat, which helps to keep our earth warm. Where's this heat coming from? When the heat is radiated from the sun, it's going to warm the surface of the earth, and that heat is going to be absorbed and held by water vapor. And this is going to make water vapor one of the greenhouse gases, or the major greenhouse gases that help to keep our planet warm. All right, and that ends the property number 3, or the third property. Now we're on the fourth one. The fourth one is universal solvent. And I only want you to write the second bullet, but I am going to read the first one. Water is the solvent of life. Why? Solvent, what does that word mean? First, let's just write the second sentence. Water is called the universal solvent because it dissolves more substances than any other liquid. Now let's look at what a solvent is. Alright, next I want you to write what a solution is. We have different solutions in our bodies. Part of the solution that we have in our body is a solute, and the other part is a solvent. But when they're together, they create a solution. So write the first bullet you see here. A solution is a mixture in which ionic compounds disperse as ions in water and are evenly distributed. Inside a solution, there is a part called a solute. Let's say salt and water. Salt will be considered a solute, and it's the substance that is being dissolved. A solvent, which is water, is the universal solvent because it dissolves mostly anything. It's the substance into which the solute is dissolving. I need you to write everything under this screen for number 4. And here's an example of a solution. And inside our body, we eat a lot of food with salt and a lot of foods with sugar. But water will dissolve mostly anything inside our body to make sure it gets transported to where it needs to go. Alright, that ends the property of water. Here is our third section. Draw me a line underneath where you wrote this information right here. Draw me a line. And your next section is water and homeostasis. First, let's talk about what homeostasis is. It simply means that in organisms, they have the ability to maintain a steady state despite changing conditions. Despite it being so hot outside, despite it being cold, when the weather changes, our body will stay in a steady state, and that is homeostasis. Water is important to homeostasis, and it's not just for humans, it's all over the planet. One is reason why water is important to homeostasis is because A, water makes a good insulator. B, water resists temperature change. C, water is a universal solvent which helps dissolve all our stuff in our bodies to make sure we get our nutrients. D, here's a good example. When we're outside in the very hot temperatures, water will make sure our body stays cool because we're sweating, so we won't get dehydrated, we won't fall out or go into too much heat exhaustion unless you're not drinking the water back. And the last way that water helps maintain homeostasis is E, ice protects against temperature extremes. When water forms ice, it helps to insulate frozen lakes. All right, that ends this section. Draw me a line under the last statement that you see on the screen. And this is your last section. I want you to call it the pH scale. This is the section that we'll do a little lab demonstration about. The pH scale indicates the concentration of hydrogen ions. What's the hydrogen ion? You'll see on the next screen. The scale that is called the pH scale ranges from 0 to 14. pH of 7 means that the solution is neutral. pH of 0 to 6 is an acid. And a pH above 7, all the way up to 14 is considered to be basic. Write all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets from the screen. All right, I only want you to write what's in black on this screen, showing you how hydrogen ions and hydroxide ions are formed in water. You have H2O, and when water kind of breaks apart, hydrogen ions can be formed along with the hydroxide ions. If the solution has more hydrogen ions in it, it's an acid. If it has more hydroxide ions in it, then it's a base. Only write what's in black. All right, we got 3 more screens. Next, I need you to tell me what strong acids are and what their pH range will be. A strong acid will have a pH of 1 to 3, and they produce a lot of hydrogen ions in the solution. An example of a strong acid in this screen would be stomach acid, which is in U and I. Lemon juice would also be a strong acid. Tomato and acid rains are acid, but not that very strong. All right, the opposite of being an acid is a base. A strong base would have a pH of 11 to 14. And instead of containing a lot of hydrogen ions, they contain a lot of hydroxide ions and very few hydrogen ions. If you look at the scale on the screen, something that would be considered a strong base is an ammonia. Soap is a weak base. Bleach is also a strong base, and oven cleaner. All right, the last thing on the pH scale. Weak acids are bases that react with strong acids and bases. They prevent a sharp change or sudden change in pH. Sudden chemical reactions can't happen if the pH is not correct. So that's why inside our bodies we have this neutralization process going on. And inside our bodies we produce naturally, buffers inside our bodies are produced naturally by the body to help maintain that steady state, which is homeostasis. All right, this is your last screen. I need you to end your notes and be sure you work on the output side of your notes, which is your KIM chart for the properties of water.